Okay.
Can close this. Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Jens.
To the power of connection. My name is Jens Rinnet, and with me today is Norbert Netten. Welcome, Norbert, first of all.
Thank you.
Pleasure
Jens.
to have you here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And today we will be talking and exploring a little bit a methodology that you have come up with, and that I believe is very powerful methodology. It's called the power of connection, which you have been developing, I guess, from your whole life experience over the last 30 years. You have been working as a business coach. Can you give us a little bit backstory of how you came, what the model is, and how it came to be?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for inviting me in. So I'm not seeing you. I'm seeing myself. So this is a little bit.
Okay.
But I don't know how to change that. Anyway, so thank you for inviting me. I'm quite excited to share my power of connection story with you. And yeah, a little bit of the background. Like I was in Australia last year. My wife and I took a time out, and we were writing, and I was contemplating on the last 30 years of my life, which is half of my life almost. And I was thinking, so now what's the value of what I did? What did I actually do? Like I work as a team coach in organizations, and I help teams to become stronger teams and make better decisions and have better meetings and stuff like that. And then I do training. I give presentation skill trainings and consultancy skill trainings, and I do personal coaching. And I was looking at what connects all of that. And it took me a long time actually to find it, because like individually all the stuff that I did was felt good when I did it, but I kind of lost. I didn't have the connection with my own purpose, so to speak, my own soul, or whatever you want to call it. So while I was writing on a book about presentation, suddenly the word connection came up, and that's kind of stuck with me. So I started thinking, and then all of the sudden, it was like my soul was talking to me. All of the sudden, everything that happened in my life, personally and professionally, started to make sense out of this word connection. So I actually, like almost on the spot, realized that what I'm doing in my work is helping people to better connect to each other, and then helping people to better connect to themselves in order to be able to better connect to others. And then from that, I went back to the first part of my life, the first 30 years. I would say that I collected disconnection. We'll probably dive a little bit deeper into that later. It's not the most pleasant part of my life, looking back from hindsight. So many things happened that I lost connection. And then I realized that when I was contemplating in Australia, that I found my way back into connection, so to speak. So I was starting to write that down, and I love models and methodologies as a framework to reflect on yourself and to reflect on business. So I was writing it down, and while I was writing it down, more and more it became clear how important the word connection is. So that's where I actually started last year, I would say.
Yeah. This sounds like a very deep reflection process, and as you said, it kind of covers up your whole life story, so to say, and all the work that you have been doing. I would like to show perhaps the model, so that people can understand what we are talking about, and you can also see, because there are 4 areas that you have described as. Should we start with what happens when there is disconnection?
Yeah. So, well, I can actually start with stories of my own life and the coaching and teamwork and everything I did. So let me just make a statement here first. So I believe that we are born in connection. So we are connected when we're born. So we have the innate capacity to connect to each other and to connect to others. So the first life force that we have when we enter the planet is connect to our mother and connect to our family. It's reaching out, it's connecting. And obviously we all know that, or most people know that when that response, when that reaching out is not like answered in the way you need it as a child, then you start to withdraw. It becomes a blocked energy, so to speak. I don't know if you're familiar with the book of Ken Wilber, the work of Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber actually wrote a beautiful small booklet called No Boundaries, and where he describes the process of losing the connection with ourselves. There's actually 3 steps in that.
Yeah, we have talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Can you explain what it means, or what are the 3 levels in there?
Yeah. I'd love to. So many people think that you lose connections when bad things happen in your life, and I mean I've been there. You definitely lose connections can lose connections when bad things happen in your life, when traumatic events happen in your life. But simply due to socialization, we all lose connections on the way in becoming an individual. And then my assumption is that we all look to find ways to find the connections back, so to speak. So we long for reconnecting with ourselves. And so Wilber describes this process very beautifully. So to explain it in a short version, really short versions. The first, so we enter the world in a transpersonal state, as he calls it, of being connected. There's no difference, there's no separation between me and the world. And that happens when we become aware that we are an individual self, which is what they call the narcissistic shock at the age of 8 or 12 months as a child. And it's a process that we need. I mean, without that narcissistic shock, we would not be able to become individual selves. So it's just part of growing up and being a human being. But with that narcissistic shock, we lose the connection. We lose some of the connection with the rest of the world. There's from that moment on, there's I, and there's the rest of the world. And many people, when they become older, like they look to find a way back into this transpersonal state of oneness. You know, everyone who is meditating or you know, many people use drugs for this purpose. Some people use sex for it. So to feel this moment of oneness, like for a very short period of time. So there are many ways that people look for it, but I think it's a rather universal longing to find this state back. I mean, you can disconnect yourself from that longing, so people lose that longing, so to speak. But I believe it's an innate longing for people to reconnect with this transpersonal state. I call it the soul, the level of the soul. Then, as a child, as a young child, as part of the socialization, what happens is that you start to disconnect from your body. So depending on where you grow up and what you think that might help your parents to give you what you want, your role in the family, and the time that you grow up in, like all these elements play a part in that. But you know, some people start to dislike the fact that they are really very enthusiastic, because you know, you get these messages that you shouldn't be too loud, or you shouldn't be too enthusiastic, or you don't what you think or what you want is not really very important. You should be there for other people. Don't be angry. So there's these messages and these feelings that you have regarding your own traits that you have, capacities, characteristics that you have, feelings and emotions that you have. And you kind of start to make a choice about what you want and what you don't want. And, you know, like the things that you really don't want, that don't fit in your desired self image, you slowly start to control them and like put them behind a wall, and then kind of oppress them or even lose your awareness that you have them. So in psychology, that's called the shadow. So it's a very well known and very well prescribed process. The hard part of that, with the downside of creating a shadow, is that it becomes the element that you fight with in the external world. So if you suppress, for example, anger, like I did when I was young, I suppressed anger. I wanted to be a rational and friendly person. I just couldn't understand that people would perceive me like different. So I thought of myself as a very rational and kind person. And emotions were actually bad stuff, and reason was good stuff when I was younger. I mean, I couldn't be more disconnected to who I am actually than playing that role. But I honestly, truly believe that that was me. I'm a rational person. Many of the people I coach call themselves rational people, and it only means that they didn't find a proper way to handle most of their emotions, actually. So basically what it comes down to. So I played that game, and because of that, I really strongly disliked dominant people. Well, I mean, because they're not rational, they're dominant, and they have some aggression. So my fight seemed to be an external fight. I just didn't like dominant people, but it was actually an internal one because I didn't like my own dominance and my own aggression, my own anger, all of the stuff that I that piled up in my life due to events and things that happened. So that's the second connection that people lose on the way. And then the third connection actually comes with that. It's not the boundary between your mind and your body. When your body becomes an object, you need to control it. It's actually the connection inside yourself, inside your mind, between who you want to be and who you don't want to be. And then that's where the shadow comes in. They all are important in a way. I mean, so my assumption is that whatever I exclude from myself becomes a potential fight in the external world, because I judge on people who have that and who don't manage to control it like I do. And when I'm not connected to my body, the impact is really huge, because how can I be healthy if I don't know what my body is actually telling me? One of the major call it diseases we have in our time now is burnout when it's in relation to work. And I believe that the burnout is directly related to many people, to the disconnection of our body. And then, as I said before, the longing many people have to feel connected to each other is actually a very, I would say, a transpersonal state of awareness that we still have, that we are one, actually. So we are one. We're different in the way we look and how we think, but we are one as humans. So I don't know if that explains, answers your question, Jens. Jens, I lost your sound. Did you mute yourself? Let me just, oh, I can't hear you anymore. seem to have lost the connection. I don't hear you, Jens. I don't know why. Everything seems to be working here. Let's see here.
Can you hear me now?
Jens? Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
So I guess there was some lagging connection.
Yeah, you're back.
So what I was saying is that you describe a lot of huge developmental topics, psychological topics here. And I just wanted to kind of give a summary on that, because basically what you're saying is that we come from a place where we are actually connected to everything around us, to the environment, to basically the people that we grow up with. And in that way, we also don't have yet developed a self-identity, which allows us actually to have this limitless or boundaryless connection with our environment. And over time, as you also described from personal experiences, we make experiences that kind of suppress then this connection. And you have described, as I understood it, that we lose the connection, first of all, to ourselves, to what I like and what I don't like, the connection to our body, the classic mind-body separation, but also the connection to other people. And if I share again the screen and show your model, there's another dimension in this, which is the content, right? Can you say a bit about how we lose connection to the content?
Well, this model that we are presenting right now is actually one of the applications of my larger model, which is the power of connection, right? So this comes from my ebook about convincing presentation, which is what I've been training for about 30 years. So when you present something, you always present content, right? So I was thinking, what happens to people being in front of other people or sitting in a meeting and presenting something that they find valuable, and how does it work that they don't get the support that they're actually hoping for? So how does that work? So what I just basically described in what we were talking about is the connection to yourself, which is only one of the four dimensions of my model. So if you look at the content, it's how well are you connected to what you're actually doing and saying. So let me give you an example. I am at the moment I'm coaching a person. She was the chairman of the board of a huge educational organization, and she came to me with the question that she didn't feel connected to what she was doing. So, and she was like past 50. And she was about to take a timeout, like a sabbatical, to find out actually who she was and what her purpose in life was. And I think on a content level, it's on a superficial level, it's about what are you saying? So what are you talking about? And how well are you connected to what you are saying? How well is that grounded in yourself? And then, about presentation skills, for example, many people think it's about being very clear and being captivating. And so people like they have these models like the television presenter. I used to be a television presenter before I started, and I was doing that kind of, you can call it a trick, like I was behaving like I thought television presenters behaved, but that just didn't have a lot to do with me. So there was no real deep connection with what I was doing there at that moment. I was just playing a game, so to speak. So my family liked it, fortunately. So what is the connection to what you're actually saying? And there are some levels there. So I think that many people do have that connection, but they're not really very good in sharing that connection with the rest of the world. So because they step into formats of presenting, of talking about things, and then they lose the connection with that. If you go deeper in that dimension, connection to the content, then there are things that you do because you're good at it, but there are also things that you do simply because they're given to you in a way. So it's your sole purpose, your purpose why you're here on the planet. Let me give you a very concrete example. I was for a very long period in my life, I was struggling between wanting to be a musician, playing piano and playing guitar and singing, which is very close to my soul, very, very, very close, and doing what I do with my work in organizations. And I kind of opposed my work, so to speak. It took me a very long time before I came to peace with that, because I didn't accept that my life is about connection, and that what I have to give back to the world, or I have to give back, what I can give back to the world, simply because it's me in everything I did and everything I experienced, is about connection. So and that just recently happened, like last year, when I found this my soul purpose, which I was looking for a long time, and I was kind of depressed about that it took me so long to find it. And it was so important for me to actually to find this deeper connection with myself, because now there's no question anymore about, for myself, about the value of what I'm doing. So I'm really at home there. It's like a homecoming to me. And for example, the person I was talking about that I'm coaching right now, she's going through a period of homecoming, which is very, very intense for her, because she's been doing for like 35 years of work what other people expected her to do, and not making her own choices. And I think there are many people out there who are battling this what do I want, and who am I, and what is my purpose in life, my soul purpose, and what is expected. I mean, if you're very religious, and you're brought up in a Christian tradition of being a good person to others, then you might not have learned so well to take care of your own needs, so to speak. So those are really quite strong struggles in that dimension, actually. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're already giving good examples. That's exactly what I was looking for, is like, how do you get aware, or what are kind of the symptoms, more or less, that you can observe, and that you can see. You already said there's this inner tension between what do I really want, and what is maybe expected from my family environment. It's the classical example, I guess. A person who is born into a lawyer family, it is kind of expected from the family's perspective that the person, the son or the girl, becomes the lawyer as well. So, but if that is not something you as an individual person feel like, this is really what I wouldn't want to do, this is not aligned with my purpose, that doesn't give me any meaning, um, I would say, can you feel like whenever you do it, I think you touched a little bit upon it, that you don't feel energized from this whatever you're doing in that moment. Is that a way of how you can see symptoms of disconnection?
Ah, that's hard because there are many. I mean, I know many people through my work that feel very energized. They feel very active. They feel very alive, and they feel very energized. And they're goal getters, and they're result-oriented people, and that drives them. And so when they have the power to guide teams and or organizations, they feel energized. And if I say to them, "Listen, you're not connected to what you're doing," they look at me like, "What do you mean? I'm totally connected to what I'm doing." So it's actually very hard, and I don't want to be judgmental on this. Also, I mean, there are a lot of people who are doing very, very good things with their life, and for many reasons, it brings them satisfaction and it brings them joy. And still, one can question if they are aligned with what I would call their sole purpose, if they have made their own choices. So it's not about being judgmental about this. It's about like if you do what you do and you don't have a problem with it, well, go on doing it. But the people that come to me, especially when they come for coaching and it's a little bit more deeper, they have these questions. They're not aligned, and like me, in the past, like before last year, when I kind of found the power of connection and the meaning of that. Before that, I was actually having a depression. I didn't like my work anymore. I liked it when I was doing it, but I was constantly questioning: is it me? Is it me? Is it me? Which is not a very pleasant thing to do, obviously. Then I am a soul searcher, so I want to find answers to those questions. So, but there are really a lot of people who don't need that, and they're living a good life. I mean, I'm a fan of the Rolling Stones. I really doubt if Mick Jagger is asking himself the same questions as I do, as far as I know him. I don't know him, but what I heard from him, he's not really a very reflective person. He just likes to sing and go out there and sing the same songs that I like very much over the past 50 years. So when they're going to tour in Europe, I'm definitely going to see them again. So it's not a judgmental thing.
Yeah, I really like the aspect of being not non-judgmental here that you bring up, because I mean, this is really a time for reflection. I believe, where a lot of things are shut down, people are invited to stay at home. Plus, we also have 84% of the workforce being really disengaged in Europe. So I can also give you a personal example. When I was working, when I had my first job, I was basically sitting in an office, feeling very disconnected from what I was doing. Didn't really saw any meaning in that. Didn't have a connection to the other people in the office. So I think I was really disconnected on all the levels. The only thing that kind of gave me maybe a little bit connection was the title that I had. But in the end, I realized, well, that's also very shallow, because I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel really connected to what I was doing. And I think the whole point of me saying this and connecting that to not being judgmental is that you, as an individual person, you have to say for yourself, well, I don't like the situation I am. I don't like where I'm at right now. And I want to take responsibility for that, and then make a choice into another direction. And I guess that is where you come in, where people can make use of the methodology that you have come up with. Another question that I have is, how can you, if you are kind of doubting right now, or want to reflect a little bit on, am I really satisfied with what I'm doing? Am I really connected to the things I'm saying to other people? How can you start kind of initiating this process? Do you have a good question or a way of identifying maybe the disconnection in the relationships?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, this is the reason why I turned my experience and my thoughts about connection into a model. Because the model is actually a framework, it's a structure to research your own connections, right? So I mean, like, I was actually, so when you were talking about your own example, I got a, I had to think back about an experience in a training situation. I'd like to share that with you, if that's okay, Jens.
Of course.
So there was a young woman, an adorable young woman, and she was very passionate about what she was doing, and the connection to the content was really very good. She was apparently, according to her colleagues, it was an in-house training. So apparently, to her colleagues, she was really very good. But there were two things. One, she was very small, and the second one, there was something with her voice that was not connected to the content. So it didn't have to do with how she presented or the structure or the PowerPoint or whatever, how she presented. It was her being very small, her height, and it was the fact that her voice was kind of cracky. You know, like very nasal, kind of cracky voice, like when you talk like that. And I'm exaggerating, but it's a little bit like that. And she was talking like that. Now, if you talk like that, I used to talk like that when I was younger, right? I experience that as a disconnection of my voice. There are many people out there in the world who do voice training, and it's basically, if it's done well, it's about being connected to yourself. There's another aspect which I would like to come back to later. It's the state of your nervous system. So let's park that now. So I was working with that woman. She was presenting, and I looked at her, and I heard her cracking voice, and something said to me like, this is probably important for her. So I asked her to come outside of the room with me, and I wanted to say what is with your voice? She says, I'm struggling with my voice for almost all my life, as far as I'm aware. So I go, wow, that's why. She said, it's such an ugly voice. And I was like, oh my, it's such an adorable woman. So that it hurts, like when someone says that, it hurts. So I said, well, what did you try? She said, I tried voice coaches, speech coaches, and all this stuff. And I said, well, did you ever try to reach other people with your voice? And she says, what do you mean? It's a basic theater exercise, actually, right? So it's very basic. But apparently no one ever said it to her. Voice coaches were training her to articulate very well, and not to actually reach out with her voice. So I gave her an exercise, and then she entered the room and she gave her presentation, and then her colleagues were like, wow, this is amazing. So it changed, and the feedback she got was, now I'm listening to you. So it was way more easier for people to actually listen to her. And she had, and someone else said, there's so much more power in you, even though she was still as small as she was before. That didn't change in 5 minutes. So the impact of when your voice is connected to your body is so strong, and it's a huge impact on other people. And I was so fortunate to be able to help her with that. She was really so glad, so happy. So I could see, I remember her smile when I left the training. And it's just like, so sorry to interrupt. So people didn't listen to the content. And then you could say, well, you're not really connected to the content, but she was connected to the content. It was the connection to her body, to her voice, a part of her body, actually, her voice, that actually had a huge impact on that connection. So it's not really very simple to make up where to start and what the connection is that is weak. But the starting point is, if you look at the 4 dimensions in my model, you can kind of have a first glimpse of what connection inside yourself is strong and which one is weaker. And then, of course, there are like tests and books about this are going to be published, and so to help people, and videos to help people to become more aware of those dimensions and help them in their search.
Hmm.
So
This is interesting because I would have thought that she was not connected or there was a disconnection in the relationship to other people. How would you respond to that?
yeah, that I didn't have to go to that area with her, but that's probably true. I guess that the block in her stem, so it's because like a blockage in her stem, in her voice, stem is a Dutch word, in her voice, probably started as a disconnection to other people.
Mhm.
So that's probably the cause. And then of course, if my exercise that I gave her, if that didn't work, then obviously we'd have to go deeper to find that disconnection and reconnect there to be able to use your voice. So
Mm.
that's absolutely that's a very good remark actually you make there, Jens. Yes.
So what I'm also understanding from this is that it is not isolated aspects in itself, but they are intertwined. Like you said before, it's very complex, and disconnection in even if you identify it maybe in one area could also mean it has, I guess, connections to other areas.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. And usually, I mean, you could say that everything starts with yourself, but I'm not really sure if that's true, because I know people who are very well grounded and very well centered in themselves, and they still are not really very capable of connecting to other people that well. Um, yeah, and I know people who really, I mean, their heart is open, and they really genuinely know how to connect to other people and respect other people, enjoy, but they don't really know very well how to handle big differences, like big differences in opinions and in vision, and so that's why I think the model in itself, like separating those dimensions can be helpful to as a starting point, but not as a framework with like, oh, okay, this is happening here and this is what you have to focus on. No, you can go from one dimension to the other in the
Mm.
framework, definitely, and you probably end up with in the dimension of yourself. So at one point, most of the time actually you do. So that's absolutely true.
You guys can't escape yourself, right?
No,
I
no,
heard the
but you can't escape others either. So,
yeah.
so
So yeah, I mean that basically expresses also that we are always connected. We are always in relationship to other people, and that the relationship to other people also defines ourselves. I mean, if you grow up alone, I don't know, in the forest without having any contact to any other people, you would never kind of ask the question, "Who am I?" Because you never have the mirror in front of you who invites you to, well, really reflect on who am I and what am I doing here? And
it's a kind of a dangerous area. You're like, I used to play that game, so to speak, when I was young, and I had created a self-image which I myself liked very, very much, and then so when I took me and my self-image out in the world, and I met others, then sometimes my self-image was stressed quite a lot, and I find it very hard to handle that. Fortunately, I don't have that problem anymore at the moment. So, but it's the downside of isolation, definitely.
yeah, but I mean, this is also, I think, a good example that you bring up is that you had on based on your personal experience, a self-image that you really liked or that maybe pleased a certain context. But what I want to say or highlight is that you are also able to step basically behind this self-image to see the pattern that is going on and really identify, well, is this really something I connect to on a deeper level? And then if that's the answer is no, to also change
No.
your self-image. Uh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I lost you
Yeah.
for a few seconds, but yeah, I can hear you.
So what I want to highlight here is that you are able to actually step behind your self-image, question this, and also change it over time. And in that way, I think you are the best example. Become more aligned with what you're doing, with who you are, um, and also reflecting that in the relationship, I guess, with other people.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that, Jens. You're very kind. And you know what? It has been quite a long journey. So, um, yeah, I mean, we all get stuff on our plate, so to speak, through life. And like you were saying, like you didn't really like the work that you do, and you quit, and you try to look for other things, and that by itself can be quite a stressful period in your life where you're actually looking for what is your truth. And like I had some really traumatical things going on in my life that isolated me when I was young. To give you an example, when I was 25, I was out on the street playing music. I had a roof above my head, and I was making money through singing out on the street. And I thought that would be the start of a brilliant career as an international street musician. And if I look back now, I couldn't have been more further away from myself than at that time in my life. I mean, honestly, I was, because of traumatical things that happened, it really had a huge impact in my life. I wasn't really able to connect to other people anymore, and I thought that what all normal people were doing was actually so useless and so, like, so I mean, I didn't know the word trauma. That didn't exist for me back then, but I was definitely developing a lot of post-traumatic stress. I was hyperventilating. I was having panic attacks. I was having sleeping problems. I felt isolated, and I was growing up. I was in my adolescent, so I lost trust in other people because, like when I was severely beaten up, uh, one of the big traumas in my life, nobody helped me. I lost trust in the system that actually should support me to become an adult person, which is my family, where many things went very wrong and were very traumatic. So it hasn't been an easy journey. I'm very grateful, to be honest. So it's a little miracle when I look back on my life and how I got out of it. I have two brothers. I had two brothers. So my older brother, he became mentally ill. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis, and he died. He ended his life about almost 20 years ago. And my other brother chose to act out his aggression, and he became criminal, and he spent most of his life in jail. And somewhere in the middle of that, there's Norbert, there's me, and trying to stay sane. And that's quite a long journey. So that wasn't very easy, but I'm very fortunate of what I've learned on the way, and I'm even more fortunate to be able to help other people, to support other people, whether it's in business or with their personal life.
Yeah, I mean,
so yeah.
There speaks so much life experience out of you, and from coming out of these experiences, and what I have observed from my own situations and from my own experiences, but also what I learned in conversations with other people is that exactly what you said, and I also said it myself. Like I was so miserable for 1 year in my first job. The day I quit, the second day I said, this is the best experience I could have made, and I'm actually thankful for that experience. Why? Because it allowed me actually to question some of the things I was doing, and it invited me to reflect my life choices in some way, and choose a different path from now on. And for that, I'm deeply grateful. And of course, it was not a nice experience. It still not is. Even if I think back, I'm not feeling emotionally like this is a good place. But still, I mean, what is important, I think, is how we deal with these situations and how we can use them as catapult us into a new understanding. And what you said, like search for our deeper soul purposes. So I think that's always an invitation and opportunity, and it depends a lot on how you would like to see things, what perspectives you choose.
Yeah.
And having said that, I would like to go into now a little bit deeper the 4 levels that you have described, and also see what can happen if you are really connected on those levels. I will share the screen again and show this time a different version, which is how...
It's a different one, right? The green one.
The green one, exactly. So this is what you basically describe as when you are truly connected in all these levels. And maybe you can just walk me through them and give me a little bit more insight, what it means, what stands behind maybe these individual aspects.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Jens. So in the center is I, which is the I, right? So it's me, you, everybody. And then in the top left is the first dimension, is the dimension, the connection to yourself. It's what I actually talked about when I was talking about Ken Wilber and how we lose that connection. So it means having being present in your body, being present wherever you are, in the here and now. Eckhart Tolle, presence, Jaworski, all those people. I don't know if people are familiar with those authors, but there's so much written about presence and being grounded and being connected. So it is a mind thing in terms of accepting yourself fully with everything you are. So not pushing something, some aspects or feelings or anything away from yourself that you really are, which you like. So the playground of all the actors inside you who can conflict, but that playground and that accepting. And then the other part is being connected in the body-mind connection. And so you have access to what your senses are telling you about what you experience, and then you can make choices based on those experiences. And then the ultimate, the deeper connection is the transpersonal connection, that you realize that you and the rest of the world are one. So what I would like to add to that is a very important thing actually in my methodology. I just recently came across the work of Dr. Stephen Porges. He has a thing called the polyvagal theory, and he researched the development of species of mammals throughout evolution, and that's related to the nervous system. So we have a nervous system, and the nervous system runs in the back of our mind constantly. It's our inner guard dog, our firewall, which is constantly actually active, on, so to speak. You don't notice that when you feel safe and when you feel relaxed. You don't notice that your nervous system is there. You notice it, for example, when your girlfriend starts to criticize you because you've done something wrong, according to her. Or when you're in a meeting and the meeting is not a dialogue, but it turns into a discussion where opinions are polarizing. Or when you're out on the street and somebody does something very nasty, cuts you off in your car or whatever, and then your nervous system get activated. But the nervous system, the activation of the nervous system, for many people, is related to danger, the fight-flight response, which is the sympathetic part of the nervous system, the sympathetic state. But I came to the conclusion, coaching management teams for like 25 years, that nervous system activation and going into the sympathetic state is actually omnipresent at almost every meeting. People are suspicious, they don't trust each other, that their interests are really met and being taken care of very well, and that people are genuinely wanting to find solutions that are good for everyone. So that's a way of collaboration that we're not really very used to. So the connection to the I, the first dimension in my model, is important because if we're not connected to ourselves, we will never get out of this fight and flight alert sympathetic state and enter the ventral state of trust. That's why I put trust in there. Many people ask me, so why do you put trust in there? Well, I put trust in there because when I am totally connected to myself, you trust me. So you and you can trust me because my nervous system is relaxed and in the ventral state of trust, actually. And it's well researched that nervous systems respond to each other. So it is called co-regulation. And so when I'm in my ventral state, in this state of trust, then it's an invitation for your nervous system to calm down and enter this state as well. And then from there, we can talk to each other in dialogue and taking care of each other. Then let's go to the second dimension.
Yeah, I
You have
just
a
wanted
question,
to,
Jens?
exactly. It makes sense to me, but and what I'm interpreting out of this is that you're actually making a plaidoyer for getting in touch with your whole body, with your emotional system, and I guess learning an emotional intelligence and emotional granularity in order to first of all identifying how do I actually feel right now, where am I, do I feel safe, am I connected, or yeah, am I in a fight or flight mode, and I guess in a second way of then trying to understand where is it actually coming from. You gave the example of maybe your colleague says something in the meeting, your girlfriend says something that I have done wrong, and why do I basically feel this way? Is that how I understand it correctly?
Yeah. And like the impact of it, I like to be a little rebellious sometimes. So I'm thinking, what would happen if a meeting in an organization would start with all these different people, like you have these color schemes of spiral dynamics and like red people and orange people and yellow and blue people. So they all have different opinions and they all have different ways to find the Holy Grail. And so what if you would start the meeting with the question, do we really trust each other that we take care of each other's interests? Do we have the capability of doing that? Do we know how to do that? I would say that even though people would want that, their intention would be good, on a behavioral level, I would say many meetings could actually stop right there because people don't really trust each other. They're used to play strategic games, especially when opinions oppose. It happens so easy. I mean, if I say something to my wife, it can be very easy taken by her as a criticism, which is not my intention. And then maybe, obviously, I have to be careful about how I say it. But even if I say it in a nice way, and it's not my intention, then she can still perceive it because that's her vulnerable spot, so to speak. And like we all have our vulnerable spots. So the importance of being connected to ourselves, to be grounded in a state of relaxation and stop the fight whenever we're invited to join it, that is so important. And actually the other dimensions, the other on the right side of my model are very important to show to people that we really mean that. Yeah, so the key in the top left dimension, connecting to the self, is being connected to yourself in trust, and that's related to your nervous system and to the work of Dr. Stephen Porges. So
how can I get more into this into my body, basically? How can I trying to more understand that I'm not just thinking, or we have trust in the boardroom or in a meeting room, but how can I also feel it? Are there ways of yeah, getting to understand my emotions, my body better?
Yeah, well, I mean, my way was just taking a tremendous amount of body work. You know, like when I was 30, I was aware that if you would ask me, how do you feel? I'd started thinking. You're like, I think I'm fine. Feel like, which is an answer from my mind. It's not an answer from my body. If you ask my wife, which I love her for that. I mean, if you ask my wife, how do you feel? There's an internal process that takes some time, which can be challenging for extroverted people like me. But she like, so she goes inside and she feels, she uses her body. And then she says, yeah, I'm fine. It's no, I don't, no, I think I'm fine. I'm fine. So for me, being that disconnected as I was with what happened in my body for many reasons, I had to do a lot of body work, and I think that's the only way. So it's, you can't do it with your mind. You have to get access to your body. You have to go do body work and feel it. So in Holland, we have this thing called haptonomie. It's a kind of roll thing. It's a kind of body work, which is actually the purpose of it is to connect you to your body and to your senses, to your feelings, and then use them. So a very simple exercise, for example, you sit on a table, and the body worker is sitting next to you, and then in the distance it says, how does it feel? And then you thought, well, I'm fine. And then he moves 10 centimeters and he says, is it better, is it worse, or is it the same? And you know, it's a very, very simple exercise, but it's very powerful, because the moment he asks, is it better, or is it worse, or is it the same, you start sensing. It's an invitation to go down into your body and to use your senses to feel the difference. And for a lot of people, that's the first experience. Or let me share you my first, this is great. So let me share you my first body work experience I had. I actually had body work before, but with people who were a little bit too nice for me. So that was very pleasant, but it didn't really bring me very much. And I got disconnected from my father. My father left the house when I was 3 years old. So that had a huge impact in my life. And I knew intuitively I had to look for a body worker, like a strong male father type of person. So I found one, Joop, and he retired, unfortunately. And I went to Joop in Maarsen, the place in Holland where he had his practice. And so you have to undress, keep on your underwear and undress. And he said, okay, let me look at you. So he looked at me, and then like after 5 minutes, without saying anything, he says, okay, can you like you to lie down on his treatment table? And then what he did was he took his hand and he squeezed my belly, and it hurt. And I was like, I was breathing it away. I learned that. I learned to control a lot of things back then through my breathing. So I was breathing that away. And he squeezed. And then after like 1 minute, he bended over to me and he said, like, do you like it? And I said, well, you're the body worker. You know what you're doing. So and then he squeezed harder. And so I was like, still breathing it away. Meanwhile, my thoughts were like, okay, this is a very bad body worker. I don't think I'm going to pay him for this treatment. I'm never going to be here again, blah, 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 blah. So that was what my mind was telling me. And then after a minute, he bent over to me and he said, do you like it? And I said, well, you're the body worker, so you know what you're doing. And then he squeezed so hard, I said, ow! And I'm holding it back, but I really said, like, you know, I was shouting, like, ow! He looked at me and he said, that's what I was waiting for. You control your entire body with your breathing and your mind, and you don't allow it to respond directly. And then I thought, I probably should stay a bit longer with this guy. I actually stayed for like years with him. do bodywork sessions twice a month for 2 years before I started becoming more acquainted with what happened in my body. And that's I'm very grateful for having taken that journey. So
It's a powerful full story. It I would say I interpret it in the way that we do so much control, which you basically said, with our mind, and suppress how we really feel. And um, I mean, I see sometimes so many people in service jobs which look totally miserable, which look, their whole body posture is like, I don't want to be in this place.
yeah.
And I'm always thinking like, why do you choose this job? I mean, why do you do this to yourself in that way? I mean, probably there are reasons why the person is where they are, but for me it's so obvious, and I'm always thinking like, oh, please do yourself a favor, and allow yourself to how you feel, and admit that this is not a job that you enjoy, this is not a task that you like doing, and please do anything else. um yeah, and I think that's when you really become in touch with your body and your emotions. I think it shows a whole new perspective than what we think we know about what we do, and the situations we are in, and how we think, how connected we are.
Yeah, and again, Jens, for me, it's not. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it stems out of a very personal experience that you have. So for me, it's very important to not be judgmental about where people are and what they do, and I kind of understand that a lot of people don't want to change for many reasons. They don't ask the same questions that we do, yeah, but I'm more concerned about the impact of that. Like there are so many people out there who are not aware of what the impact is of being disconnected from themselves or others or what they do on creating the trust that we need to make this world a better place, or even to make this world work, to make work, and to make life work and relationships work. So if you are disconnected from your senses, how can you open your heart for a partner, to a partner, and how can you have a joyful relationship? I don't know how to do that. But it took me a really long time to trust my wife and to open my heart and trust that opening it won't make her leave me. Like so those are really very strong, deep convictions that people can have. And I mean, I've been coaching a management team where one of the people is the financial manager. With his mind, he chooses to have a very limited group of people that he trusts, and the other people are out, which are out of that space. He just doesn't trust, and he uses that to be very hard, firm, hard on people at times. But for him, it works because he wouldn't really know how to deal with too much trust. So he disconnects from other people, which is the second dimension, where you kind of where you adapt to people and you create a mutual respect to people. And when you're disconnected from other people, you can be connected to yourself, but you're disconnected from other people. How can you have healthy relationships, and how can other people feel that you trust them, that yeah, that you respect them? So yeah. Are you still there, Jens? Yeah. Yeah, you're there.
I just got a different microphone here.
Okay.
Um, no, I think and it comes basically back to what you said in the beginning, that if you feel fine with whatever you're choosing, and it is also fine in the relationship with other people, then you know, who is to judge there? Why should somebody say, well, this is not the right thing to do? For me, I think I have been in situations where I have been exposed to people being in not connected to what they are doing, I think, for their whole life. And for me, that is probably my own story and my own yeah, experiences that I have to deal with. But that's why I'm saying is like, for somehow it's so easily observable for me. And yeah, I mean, I'm also understanding I can't do anything from the outside if the person doesn't have the intention to change. But that's why I'm always encouraging people to reflect on, how do you really feel? Like, is this
Yeah.
job, what you're doing, making you happy? How is your relationship with your boss? Do you like your boss? Do you feel like you can trust the people in your team? All the things that you have been describing. You can start asking these questions, and you know, it takes also courage to listen to the answers that are emerging, and probably even takes more courage to go on this path of yeah, working on yourself, working on creating better relationships or more connected relationships with yourself, with others. Um, and yeah, I see also a huge impact. I think that's what you were touching upon for organizational, but also societal development. How do we respond really to the crisis that is going on right now? How connected are we? Can we stay centered ourselves, first of all, but also how can we look at all the systems and all the mechanisms and patterns that are currently happening, and how do we really feel about being affected by them, and what do we want to do about it?
Yeah. And those are huge questions, like, so I kind of tend to think that there are actually two states of organizing work, life, relationships. And so they relate to this work that I described before of Stephen Porges. So there's a sympathetic state of arousal, in a negative way, of arousal and fight and flight. If you look at polarization, which happens in most of the countries in the world right now, right-wing parties like fighting, and also left-wing parties, by the way. So it's truly living in the sympathetic state and not trusting each other. And America first, Holland first, Germany first, whatever first. It's me, and it's we against them, and it's all very nasty. And no, I don't want to take it. If you look at the huge problem of the refugees, it's about exclusion, it's rather than inclusion. So, and the essence for me is actually it's all so clear that that's the way that we have been doing it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. That's what we learned. That we learned to not trust each other, while our basic capacity is to trust each other. This is what Porges describes. We have learned to trust each other as a biological need to survive as a species, as mammals. And we're, as human beings, we're really very good at it. We can smile at each other and say, hey, I'm a friend, I'm not your enemy, I'm not going to kill you. So we have over the years, we have developed muscles and they're connected to our nervous system, to nerves, to radiate out that we can trust each other, which is like the example that I gave about this adorable woman. The voice connecting to yourself is something that we learned over many million years, apparently. I don't know how many million years. Portuguese would probably know that, but we've learned that we have that capacity. We're really not using it very well. So we're even the people who are looking for better ways to collaborate, better ways to work together, to like self-management, which I really like a lot, self-organization, better, like the democracy, which is under threat, and relationships, good to have healthy and sustainable relationships with other people. Even those people are so easily trapped and drawn into this sympathetic state when they get together and when they're confronted with differences that are hard to handle. And then there are really many beautiful methods out there to support groups, like, you know, you're familiar with that, Jens, like World Cafe and Theory U and these methods that help groups, and they're really needed, those methods. But the core change, I would say, happens when people are aware what the quality of the connection is that they have with others and with themselves, and then take the responsibility, are able to take the responsibility to look for weak connections and strengthen them, which is hopefully what my methodology supports. So yeah, so that's.
I'm looking a little bit here at the time, and I think it's time to wrap it up a bit. I think it's just summarizing a little bit what you have said. I think it's so fascinating that we have developed a physiological skill to actually communicate with other people and to build rapport, to build trust. And it's not something that is just a feeling that I have and that I want to express. You know, it's not just the metaphysical up in the air intention. It is really a physiological behavior that I can display, and that hasn't been there before. That has been, like you said, based on evolution of humanity, developed in order to communicate with more complex situations, to basically signal tribes, I guess, that you have never seen before, to signal them, well, I'm a friend. You don't have to kill me immediately. Maybe let's talk first and see how we go from here. And that is something, I try to remind myself to, because I think, like you said, we are all connected. We are all have this innate capacity on so many levels, and I hope that is something we could have shown a little bit in this talk, to be really connected to ourselves, to others, and in some way we have to spot and identify where are the disconnections in our relationships. And there are certainly ways, you mentioned some of the methods that are out there to restore these disconnections. And I want to leave the last words to you, and also ask, you mentioned the state of sympathy so often during this talk. What is the alternative to that, really?
I, you know, there are so many people searching for better ways to collaborate and better ways to live their life and better ways to have relationships. And I think all of the methodologies out there can be supportive, but I think the new thing that I'm bringing in with my methodology is a very clear framework as a starting point to look for which connections are strong and which connections aren't. And when they aren't strong, usually the symptoms or the problems derive from there, so to speak. So hopefully a lot of, actually, it would be my desire that people feel attracted by this, because it's a very clear framework, and then it can be used to help people restore the connections, and through that it supports, it hugely supports to go away from this fight and flight response and strategic dealing with each other, and collectively stay in or get back to a state of confidence and trust, and with that support ourselves, our health, our joy, our success, and even democracy and peace. So that's the impact of connection, I would say.
Hmm.
So,
I mean, I said it in the beginning. I really feel like this is a deep and very helpful methodology. I believe what you have basically described, it speaks from your whole life experience, from the work that you have been doing. There's so much wisdom in that, and I guess that's the deepness, the depth that you can really feel and see. And how can people reach you? How can people find more information? Can get in contact with you?
yeah, well, I'm working on a new website for the power of connection. And the first one is going to be in Dutch, and then there's going to be the international one. But I do have an email, so I don't know if you can broadcast it, if you can show it. It's norbert@powerofconnection.world. So that's my Norbert is my first name, Norbert, and then at powerofconnection.world. And yeah, so whenever people want to reach out with questions, or if you know, my dream would be, I'm definitely going to start giving introduction workshops about the 4 dimensions, where people can explore them, like 4 days workshops where people, like 1 dimension per day exploration. And obviously I'd love to be invited for lectures and other stuff. So yeah, so people feel attracted by the method, I hope they reach out. I hope they connect to me.
Great. And all the information will also be on our website, bestforthe.world. Search for Power of Connection. There you'll find also this talk, the recording of the YouTube video, and your email address. And yeah, if you don't find the information, you can always contact us. I'm happy to make the connection to Norbert. And with that, any last words, any last thoughts from your side, Norbert?
Well, no, I'm not more than thank you very much, Jens. Thanks for the invitation, and I wish you a very pleasant and joyful conference for the next couple of days online. So stay well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining. This was Norbert Netten from Power of Connection.